Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are in the world today, I hope that you are doing great. I hope that all is pleasant for you. And most importantly, my friends, I hope that you are in good health. Once again, welcome to the Common Sense channel. On this channel, my friends, we get to talk about those things that people know, that people have thought about, but don't often have the time to discuss. These, my friends, are the things we talk about here on the Common Sense channel. So, once again, welcome to the Common Sense channel. Today, I want to talk about the League of Nations, and I want to do a little bit of comparative studies. So, I want to go back between the League of Nations and the United Nations to see if they had some similarity that are exhibiting in our world today, or that you can see clearly interplaying in our world today. So, for example, the League of Nations has structural issues. What does that mean? It means that the League of Nations had many smaller countries that were comprising of its council. And because of that, and most of those members that were comprising of the League of Nations councils, like the Security Council today, they were all bunched, they were all looking out for themselves, self-interest. So whenever issues came out, they were not able to address it because they were all looking out for themselves, their country. They were not looking out for the common good of the council itself, of the League of Nations. And we see the same thing today with the United Nations. And not only that, they didn't have enough the sway to for instance, if it passed a resolution, to act on it. They couldn't act on any resolution because each of the members were like, oh, I'm not gonna do this because I'm aligned with this. It was just a bunch of alignment going on within the council itself of the League of Nations. And you see the same thing happening with the United Nations today. And you see that in the Security Council. So a lot of people don't know there are two forms of security councils in the United Nations. There's the one with the permanent members, and there's the one with the non-permanent members. So most times when you see on TV, when they are acting out, when they are playing, because I say they are in the theater of confusion and then blah, blah, blah. So normally when you see all that theater going on, is basically the non-members. Those ones that just talk, but there's no action. But the real big boys are the ones that are in the permanent members of the Security Council. And those members, if you don't know, they are Great Britain, the United States, France, Russia, and China. Those are the 5 countries that are members of the permanent security councils. So, like the League of Nations, they had a council, and that council was feckless. It was weak. They couldn't, if they pass a resolution, whatever it is that they did, if any member did something and they tried to act, none of them could act because they all had self-interest. And secondly, they didn't have they were lacking the enforcement power. So they can come up with a resolution and say we're gonna punish Italy for what they've done. But guess what? When it's time to act on it, they didn't have the force. They couldn't put together the force to enforce whatever resolution they had passed, to take action against a country that violates their laws or rules. So that was one of the biggest problems. Another thing that happened during this time that really broke the back of the League of Nations was the Great Depression. And this was not just happening in America. We know. And that's the reason why when you look at America, you say this is a great success story, because America was able to get out of the Great Depression. Remember, this was a difficult time in the history of this country where people were standing in line for food. Everything had collapsed. And that's the reason why when you look at the American experiment, you can say, wow, how did these people turn things around? And that's why I believe any country on this planet can do it. That experiment can make that happen, because it went from just nothing to become the world financial hub in less than 30 years. How did that happen? So at this time in the history of the League of Nations, the Great Depression was going, it was happening everywhere. All of the countries, they had to pull back their resource. Instead of now looking at global peace, they're like, you know what, at this time we have to take care of our internal affairs. So that vacuum had to be filled. And the countries that fill out the vacuums of their weakness, their inadequacy, or their lack of attention as far as world peace, world stability is concerned, Japan, Germany, and what's the other one? Italy. They like, you know, we have to make our move. And when they invaded those other countries, Japan invading, like I can say, almost all of Southeast Asia, including China. Germany invading Poland, I think France, and what is it, man? Poland, I think they did went into Ukraine too. Like invading all these countries, Germany, and nothing was done. So you see, so that event that happened, and we in our world today, the event that happened that changes everything was the pandemic. Our world has never been the same since the pandemic. So we can attribute some of the changes that are happening in our world now to the onset of the pandemic. I think historians can do that. And they would be right to do that, to attribute some of the changes that are happening in our world today to the pandemic. It changes everything forever. So in the League of Nations time, it was the Great Depression. So all of these structural things that happened that caused the collapse of the League of Nations is the same thing that are happening, the same events that are happening in the United Nations today. And one will argue that the Security Council, I don't like to say a permanent member or non-permanent member, that right there is the problem that I think need reform. If this world is to be a safe, a better place where everyone can live in peace, harmony, tranquility, respect of others' culture, respect of others' values, respect of other people's country, I think that Security Council needs to be reformed. We shouldn't have permanent member or non-permanent member, because most time when you see at the UN, you see when they have it convening their Security Council meeting, that's how they call it. But I think they needs to be specific when they're having that meeting. They should say the non-Security Council members, so that way the whole world know who is meeting. Because normally when they meet on there and they're talking, they just feel as if that's the Security Council convening a meeting and something is going to be done. But those are just non-members. So they can be blabbing all day, as was the case of Gaza, when those babies, women, old people were being, decimated. They were blabbing. And their fictitious court, ICC, never do anything. You understand? But the only time the ICC is activated is when Africa is in crisis and someone violates something. That's when they're relevant. I don't know if sometime in the future, based on what was happening with Gaza, with Israel and Hamas, maybe the Africans are going to stand up to them and say, you are not coming over here. You are not coming over here to arrest anyone. Whatever happened in Africa needs to be done, taken care of by Africans. You weak and feckless, go over there. So you understand? So all of these structural problems and issues were the reason why the League of Nations collapsed. And by the way, the Leagues of Nations were not even inclusive as far as the rest of the world is concerned. It was all European countries. And that's true. There are no Southeast Asian countries, I don't think, because no, it wasn't. So European countries, smaller ones in there. So it collapsed because they didn't have the money. They didn't have the willpower. They were not interested in enforcing their own laws or the rules or regulation, bylaws, whatever it is that they had going at that time. It was just like, what's in it for me? Self-interest, my country. And those other countries like Japan, Italy, and what the other one? Germany. Yeah. They saw the loopholes and they took advantage of it. And it's the same thing today. So I think, and I heard a friend talking about it was just he and I were just having a conversation and we were talking about nuclear weapon. Because I was talking about me. Sometimes I like to talk about things like that because the way I see things going, the way I see the world, is the reason why I think the way I think, and it's the reason why I say what I say. But I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, when America seized a Russian flagship. I think it was somewhere around Europe when it did that. Yeah. Coming from Venezuela. That is a serious escalation, especially with a nuclear armed country like Russia. Imagine if America had done that to North Korea. What do you think that madman would do? It's dangerous. So that's where we are in our world today. Some of us can go to bed the next day and we'll maybe be looking for cover because Donald Trump, I don't know what's wrong with Donald Trump. I don't know who is guiding Mr. Trump. But whoever is guiding you, Mr. Trump, you need to fire that person and bring in someone with more brains. Because, or maybe all of the flair and all of the hype behind the nuclear weapon, I think maybe it's a lie. I don't think maybe, again, I can say it, why not? I don't think nuclear weapons are that bad like they want us to believe. I don't think. Because if it were that bad, they won't be acting reckless like that. So I don't know what Russia is going to do. But I can just assume that maybe Russia is going to start boarding some European ships in Europe and just taking over. And I don't know what will happen, or maybe Iran can do the same, board ships coming from Europe or America in the Strait of Hormuz. Or maybe China can do the same thing in that Pacific Ocean area and just, we don't know, but it's just a bad precedent And I think our world is crazy. We're not living in this. It is. I'm gonna go to sleep, but maybe I'm gonna keep one eye open. And I hope Donald Trump can think about what he's doing, because anything that threatens the lives of the American people, I don't think it's gonna go down well with his administration. And I don't want to say Donald Trump is representing all the American people. Mm-mm. I don't think so. I think American people are better than that. I think this country is way, way better than that. I think the principle that guides this country is the key to why this country stands higher among all of the other systems out there. Yeah, I think, and I don't think one man surpasses the will of this country. The will and spirit of this country is bigger than Donald Trump. And I think Donald Trump knows that. Yeah. That's the reason why I don't think America is a democracy. I think it's a constitutional republic. At some point, the Congress, which hasn't been acting anyway, maybe they try to do the right thing. But I think at some point needs to step in and say, no, we don't run. This is not a dictatorship over here. Because it's hard to understand what Mr. Trump is actually doing. I do. I understand what Mr. Trump is doing. But at some point, like you're going to think, some of us has children in this country. Their future means so much to us than all of that things you're doing, Mr. Trump. And we wouldn't want you to put their future at risk, with any of these countries out there. And I think here's what the future should be. My friend and I was talking about this. I think all countries, because I don't think uh, having a nuclearized world is a bad thing. Yeah, I don't think now that I know, because if it were that bad, they won't be acting, these powerful countries, these nuclearized superpower, Russia and America. I don't think they would be acting reckless like that. Yeah, or maybe they're just playing games, or I don't know what they're doing, but maybe they could be playing games for educational purposes. Maybe they're playing game on us. Maybe Putin and Donald Trump like have this little thing going on, they're flexing. Maybe, who knows? But yeah, but whatever it is they're doing is dangerous. That's my own take on this. That's my own take on this. So, but yeah, I don't think having a nuclearized world is a bad thing. Yeah, I don't think. And the reason is, look at Pakistan and India. They live side by side, and these two guys, these two countries, are nuclear armed countries. And then right in that same area is China. I think last year, Pakistan and India, they were going at it. They were flexing on each other. And Pakistan somehow managed to down most of the Indian jet. I mean, super jet, man. It downed them. But in as much as India was humiliated, they didn't go like, we're going to press on the nuclear bomb. Boop. But they both knew that they could destroy each other. And I know Donald Trump was watching on the side. He's like, you know what? I better step in right now. You understand? So, but I think having a nuclear weapon, because we're seeing from these two, and China right there too. And China and India, they've had it too. But they never used that. They never even mention it. Sometimes North Korea does what they do with their missiles and stuff like that. But I think it's just more of attention to be trying to like, hey, we're here. Don't forget us. I think that's all it's about. I don't think they're trying to scare Japan or anything like that. But Japan always holler. Japan always say, hey, America, North Korea. But yeah, I just hope that whatever Trump is doing, it shouldn't escalate into something dangerous, like how we had in Cuba between in the 60s between Cuba and America. We don't want that kind of situation, especially up here. But it just set a terrible precedent, and like the having a nuclearized world, I think it's a great thing because it's gonna deter a lot of people. Some people say it's a bad thing. Yeah, say because they talk about all the thing that's gonna go in the atmosphere, it's gonna pollute the world. But I think they're talking about the effect of one of those things. But we only know because in history of mankind, only one country has used nuclear weapon, and that's the United States. So I don't know if there anything that's going to deter America from using it. You understand? I think that's the reason why all those other countries they've already set up their system in a way that even if you obliterate them, that stuff is still coming at you. So it'll be based on who shoot it first, who pressed the button first. You know what I mean? It's a scary place. Scary. Yeah. So that's the reason why if you live in our world today, you have to be in tune with what's happening. You can't say, oh, I don't care about what's happening in global affairs. No, pay attention. Because that way, if you know who is going to release that thing first, you know where to hide. You know what kind of measure to take. That's true. You have to be. That's survival rules number one. Know the environment. You understand? You got to know. You got to pay attention to, especially stuff like that. I mean, if you don't want to watch news with all the drama going on, that's fine. But when it comes to stuff like this, you got to pay attention. Please, people, especially those that watch my channel, pay attention. Don't be. In Africa, I think Africa should work towards getting nuclear bomb. Each country in that place must have one. So that way, any country like Nigeria wants to go into Benin, they're going to be like, oh, Benin has a nuclear bomb. Don't listen to these people because that stuff is not as bad as they want you to believe. No, I don't think it's that bad. Because the one America dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there's still people that survive. Yeah, there are people that survive. So one way or the other, someone is going to survive in this world. So we shouldn't be afraid of this stuff because if it was that bad, these two big fish, Russia and China, they won't be acting like that. Yeah, that's my own take. And all those people that argue about um, nuclear weapon, we shouldn't allow nuclear proliferation. That's the word they use, proliferation, because it's going to be bad for mankind. What about all the killings and all the wars around that spread all over the place? Isn't that bad for mankind? But when a country has nuclear weapon, you don't mess with them. Look at North Korea up there. Have you ever seen someone America mess with North Korea? Instead, they try to talk to them. They try to offer things to them in exchange for their leniency. They kind of beg you and talk to you nice. You see, so that's what it would do. It would deter. And I think if you know I have one, you have one. Just like the argument for guns, those people that are against guns, right? The proliferation of guns. They say, "Oh, don't own gun because it is the reason why people are dying because of guns. So we must eradicate all guns." And the supporter of guns say, "What are you talking about? There are people with guns." And not only are they with guns, it's because the Constitution allows them. And that right was guaranteed by the blood of patriots. So you can't take away that. So the same people that are making the argument for why people shouldn't have their guns, that is going to kill people, this and that. I remember when Ohio was talking about um, passing legislation for Ohioans to be able to legally carry guns on them. So you can possess and carry them. You can own them. You can own them in the state of Ohio. And now you can also carry them on you. The only thing I say, if you see a police officer and they pull you over, let them know. The police, these are Second Amendment people anyway. Because I don't think someone joined the police and say, I don't want to deal with guns. Because me personally, I don't think guns are bad. I don't think it's, yeah. I think it is, some people call it peace be still. Or some people call it the equalizer. I watched this movie. It was a slave movie, right? When the slaves didn't have the guns, they were on the slave ship, right? And they were being sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to America. When they didn't have the gun, when they didn't have nothing, they were submissive and everything. And then one of them said, "Let's take over the ship," and they took over the ship, right? And they had a gun, and they noticed that because of that gun, they were able to subdue the people that were oppressing them and threw all of them overboard. So you see, that's the power of gun. When you own one, you're an equalizer now. Someone can't mess with you when they know you're loaded. It's the same thing with a nuclear bomb. When you have nuclear bomb and someone know you have nuclear bomb, they're not gonna mess with you. If they're ever gonna mess with you, it's gonna be more like a dialogue thing. But they're not gonna say we're gonna go tit for tat with you, because they know you have the same capacity that they have. So when that happens, you have a peaceful neighborhood. If you live in a neighborhood where everyone is loaded, people, especially if they're responsible, like people who have nuclear bombs, the ones that I know so far, they are responsible. They're not going around brandishing and say we're going to destroy everyone as the big bully and stuff like that. They're not doing bullying people across the place. Like the people that own guns, you don't see them going on the street and saying, wagging their guns out to people and saying, man, I'm loaded, man, I'm going to do you. No, they don't do that. You understand? So it's the same argument. So those people that make an argument against owning guns are the same people that are making the same argument for what reason why people shouldn't have nuclear weapons. So now to my point, the point for this video is this. Since these structural issues or problems are not being addressed, they were not addressed during the League of Nations, and they are not being addressed in the United Nations now. The same problem the League of Nations had, that had the entire organization collapse, is the same structural, same societal, same historical events that are happening in our world today with the United Nations. The United Nations is weak, it's feckless, it just talk. That's all it does, talk, talk, talk. Genocide can be occurring right next door to the United Nations, and they would do a damn thing about it. They're just going to convene that stupid meeting and do nothing. You understand? So here's what I want to say. It's time. I know they've mentioned that, especially those countries, those smaller countries, they have mentioned this, that it's time for the United Nations to reform. Because when that United Nations was being discussed or established in San Francisco, the United States of America, none of those countries were at the seat, at the table. None of them had no say in which countries am I talking about? I'm talking about most of Southeast Asia. India wasn't there. I think India wasn't there. Most of Vietnam wasn't there. North Korea, South Korea, the Philippines, none of those countries were there. I'm not going to even mention Africa, because Africa was still a colony. We're talking about 1948. 1946, 47, 48. None of those countries were represented. And if you look at the structure of the United Nations, they were looking back at what those factors, those issues that the League of Nations had. That's why they have two councils. And I think those two councils should be scrapped. It should just be the big nine. And what do I mean by the big nine? It's already the big five. It should be called the big nine. So that way you have 5 new members, 1 representative from Africa, 1 representative from Southeast Asia, 1 representative from the continent of Australia. You understand? And then 1 representative from all of those countries that are part of Iceland. So that's 4. And we can add another 1 too to it. And that way it's more equitable, it's more balanced. But if you just have 1 council that's comprising of non-members and then the other one that's comprising of permanent member, it don't make no sense. Because all of the noise they're going to make here in the non-member council, Security Council, at the end of the day, those 5 members, they get to decide. And if 2 of them say no, which is always the time, Russia and China always say no, you're going to have the 2 stooge, England and France, they're going to agree with America anyway. So at the end of the day, it's dead. So just make it the big 9. You make it the big 9, it's more balanced, it's more equitable. That way, if 3 of those folks, the usual people now, France and England, if they align with America, if America is still in it, because I think at this point it's the best time for all of those smaller countries to protest and just tell Ban Ki-moon, Guterres or Ban Ki-moon, it's Guterres, the new Secretary General, just tell him, look, it's time for reform. Because the direction in which our world is going, we've already had the Gaza and Israel stuff went on. Nothing was done. We watched an entire genocide occur in the eyes of the world, and nothing was done. Now we're looking at what's happening between America and South America, and nothing is done between Venezuela and the United States. Who's next? That's the question. Could be Mexico, because Donald Trump already bombed Nigeria. So he's coming from all the way over here, about 3,000 or 4,000 miles from here to Africa. When the most, if you look at Africa, the most Christian dominating country in Africa is not even Nigeria. It's Ethiopia. Ethiopia has more Christians than Nigeria. I think Nigeria is next. So does that mean Ethiopia is next? Does that mean Kenya is next? Does that mean South Africa is next? So you see the slippery slope. So I think it's time. This is from the Common Sense channel now. I think it's time that all of these countries, that would be Southeast Asia, that would be Africa, that would be any other country in Europe that are smaller, it's time for them to boycott the United Nations and say you have to reform, or else we are walking. We will come back. We don't want, United Nations has been a force for good anyway. But when it comes to ending wars, you haven't been the force that you're supposed to be. And that was one of the main reasons why the League of Nations collapsed anyway, because they couldn't even stop Japan from going into the Philippines, from going into Burma, from going into Thailand, from going into China. They couldn't stop Italy from invading Ethiopia or North Africa. They couldn't stop Germany from attacking countries in North Africa. They couldn't stop Germany from going into Poland and most of those European countries, because they didn't have they were not All of them were not together. They're all seeking their own interests, as is the case today with the United Nations. You see, most of them, they go and make noise over there. When it comes to making real decision, when it comes to taking action, they all start to align with their various little cliques. So at the end of the day, nothing will be done. So it's time for all of these countries around the world that do not feel like their voice are being heard or are really in favor of world peace, like me. I think this place is a beautiful place. All of us can live here in peace and harmony. What is it that we want we don't have? The Almighty has blessed this world with enough things for us to use. Everything, all the resources we need for our technology are here. We can make this place a better place. So if you're that country out there and you look at the United Nations, it's not addressing some of these structural problems and issues, walk away. And let me tell you, when you do, you will know whether Donald Trump wants to be part of the United Nations or not. The Europeans, they established the United Nations together with America, but they undermine the United Nations all the time. So they also don't want the United Nations. Donald Trump has already told you he don't care much about the United Nations. And I think at one point he even tried to pull back his fundings from the United Nations. You understand? Europe, the Europeans, they're hard for you to trust them because they are here, they are comme ci, comme ça. That's what the French say. This way, that way. You understand? So they too, maybe they pretend like they have respect for the United Nations and global rule-based laws, but I don't think so. So neither one of these people, they are the original founders of the United Nations, but they don't want it. So if they don't want it, why should you even want it? You're wasting your time. So pull back, just like you're in a relationship with a woman and you're doing your best to please her. And every now and then you please her, she's like, hey, I'm not happy with you. Every now, like you do all these nice things and she tells you, you're not making me happy. I don't feel like being part of this relationship. But you think you're doing your best. You went and even bought Viagra for her. And yet she's still not happy. So you're like, what am I not doing? Or what do I need to do? That will send a strong statement to her that I can't be fooled around with. Or you're not the only woman that are out there. The ocean is large and there are many fishes in there. So all I need to do is put my hook in there and I'll grab one. At some point, you got to put your foot down. And then when you do, you walk away. If she start to see that you're worth something in her life or you're important, maybe she'll come back, and this time it's going to be a lasting relationship. So at some point, the point is, at some point you got to put your foot down. That's what the old people say. Put your foot down and that person is going to know that you mean business. And I think that's what you smaller countries need to do, and demand a seat, or if not a seat, in a permanent security member department. That's how I'm going to call it, a department. Ask that the whole thing be reformed. But how would you voice your opinion when you don't have money? So you see, it's all about money, economics. So, but when you can take care of your pocket, I think, because most of the time Donald Trump threatened the United Nations to withdraw funding. So he understands economic is their problem too. So if you pull out, you small countries, you can pull out. And if they're not willing to reform, create something that's going to address issues pertaining to your members. You understand? So if any of these big fish, that could be America, Russia, China, decide to attack you guys, all of you can form a group and counteract. You understand? I think that's just my own thinking though, because on the Common Sense channel, we try to explore things. You have to think. You're not stuck in a relationship. I'm talking to the small countries. You are not stuck in that relationship. It's not working. It's not working for global peace. You understand? Why is the United Nations there and there's so much war all over the place? There's insecurity all over the place, and their job is to end these things. So you got to start asking questions. Because at the end of the day, all of you that are spearheading your various countries, representing your various country, you're not going to be on this planet forever. What are you leaving behind for your country generation, for the children that are growing up in your countries? You understand? Are you trying to bring about peace, global peace for them? So for the whole world to live in peace, that what you're trying to do? Is that your plan? So that's my take. And I think it's time for some of you to start talking about nuclearizing your various country too. Don't listen to none of the terms. Donald Trump doesn't really care whether you do that in your country. I don't think he's going to be bothered by that. You understand? Donald Trump don't care much. It's all for him. It's America first. That's what he's thinking about. I don't know. Maybe with the Christian thing going on there, I don't know. And Donald Trump is not even a Christian. I don't remember hearing Donald Trump saying that. But again, who knows? But yeah, think about nuclearizing yourself. Those people that are saying it's not good, they're lying. I think they're lying. I'm not even gonna entertain their if I were you, I wouldn't even entertain their argument, because you can make the same argument for guns too. You can make the same argument for climate change too. That's another thing I need to do a video on. I do a whole video on that climate change too, because I think that's the biggest hoax ever told to mankind. Climate change. You understand? But people don't think about it because they're held down by economics. You can make the same thing, the whole thing for IMF too. You can make that same case. It's time you guys need to challenge this old system. Challenge this old system. Challenge them. They're weak. Their foundation are not strong. The moment you start to challenge them, they will crumble. And this is the right time for you guys, you smaller countries, to make your move. Because Donald Trump is also trying to get out of that organization. The Europeans don't even value the organization. They helped create it. So by you boycotting that would be a way for that whole thing to collapse. And that way you can come up with something. That's what happened after the League of Nations collapses. They had to come up with something. So maybe eventually we don't want something catastrophic to happen, like World War II, for them to come up with something. So this is the time to do that. This is just from the Common Sense channel. So I just wanted to do this video as I've always done, like talk about things here on the Common Sense channel. It's all about educational purpose. Like we do this thing for you to think, because look, all changes starts by thinking and asking relevant / meaningful questions. If you can think and ask these good questions, maybe you might be able to solve some of the problems that the world is faced with. Or else, these people are going to be basically yapping and babbing in that non-member security council. And then we're going to see nuclear bomb flying across from one place to another. And by the time you notice, the whole world is in some mess. So far, only one country on the planet has ever use the nuclear weapon on another nation. And what do you think will stop them? That would be the great United States. What do you think will stop the United States from using it again? Is it Russia? Is it China? Is it who? When the president can say, we can do whatever we want to do. Can anyone stop us? And you can't do a damn thing about it. You understand? Can't do nothing about it. That's a powerful statement. But I know America is a constitutional republic. And that constitution has been the guide for this country for 200 and something years now. We're gonna go beyond 300 years, beyond 4, 5, 6, 700 years. And that constitution is still gonna be the guide. When people like Lindsey Graham can go on TV and use nuclear weapon, obliterate a people, and then at the same time talk about Jesus Christ, the man of peace and love, the man of wisdom, the greatest teacher that ever walked this planet, use his name in the same phrase of obliterating another people, something that Jesus would have never said, would have never mentioned. That's something to think about. But let me tell you, in spite of all of these difficult challenges America is facing now, the people of this country is facing, history has always proven this to be true, that America has always been able to emerge out of this. I don't think it's going to tarnish the reputation of this country for the next administration coming in. I don't think so. But I know, hopefully, President Trump would think, I don't know what he's doing, but I don't think he's stupid. I don't think he's dumb. I've said it many times on my channel. Maybe he and Putin they're playing some love game or something. We don't know. I'm just saying. But maybe it's going to work for the good. But anything like that, I think is risky. So I'm not going to say it's going to work for the good. But I see this world, this year, terrible. And I just hope it ends well. That's my hope. I will always stand on the side of peace. I will always stand on the side of the American people, because I've seen different administrations come and go. But the plight of the American people, the spirit of this country, the spirit of the American people has always lived on and has always won over and over, from the time of slavery to the Civil War to the Great Depression and up to the recession in 2008 and up to the pandemic and up to now. The spirit of this country has continued to live on. I don't think no administration, no human being of a man can change the principles and the ethics and the morality that guides this country. That I know since I've been here. Even though there are elements of this so-called democracy that they talk about all the time. But I personally don't believe in that. I only know America is a constitutional republic. That's it, period. But yeah, I know we're going to get through this. Whatever it will be, we'll get through this. But yeah, all these small countries, from South America to Southeast Asia to Africa to Europe to Australia, wherever you find yourself in this world, if you're a country, it's time to seek for reforming the United Nations. Do that. Start the process in 2026 and you see what happened. And don't be afraid. If you're out there, you small countries out there, advocate for nuclearizing your country. I don't think it's that dangerous. It's not. It's not that dangerous. They want you to believe it's dangerous, but I don't think so. You know, they made the same case for guns too. But it turns out that those people that own guns, they're responsible people. They don't go around shooting people. They don't go around doing things like that. It's just people who are evil and people who want to do other people harm. They're the ones going around lawlessly killing other people. But reasonable, responsible people, sensible people, peace-loving Americans that own guns, they don't do stuff like that. So again, I want to thank everyone for watching my videos. I want to thank those that continue to support me. I want to thank all those people that are subscribed to my channel. I love you. I honor you. I hope that you are doing great. Hope that all is blessing for you and your family, and most importantly, my friends, I hope that you are safe and in good health. As I've always said, the greatest thing that could ever happen to anyone is not the day you were born, not the day you had your first child, the day you graduated from high school, college, the day you became a lawyer, doctor, whatever it is that you're working on. The greatest thing, my friends, that could ever happen to anyone is the day you discover yourself. Because from that day on, my friends, everything will start to make sense to you, including understanding the world around you and keeping your eyes open just in case something reckless happens in your backyard. You know exactly what to do, how to escape, and how to protect you, your family, your community, your society, and your country. Have a pleasant day. Thank you.